everybody, good evening. This is Jean here, Jean Truelove from True Love Quilts for You. I am coming here quickly this evening to make a correction. Not necessarily a terrible correction, but this is in reference to my last video that I put up for my One Block Wonder quilt that I'm making. I'm chain piecing, I'm chain ironing, I'm trying to get it in order. And I showed you where I was on my ironing board, how to put the blocks together in that configuration. And I started to sew them as I sort of was showing you. I'm going to put my camera down and show you where the one seam that I say you chain piece, it's the horizontal seam, and I made a mistake. I'm ever so sorry. If you're started on this project, maybe but just a few of you are going to, I'm going to call Jen and tell her, if you're following it, absolutely, I do it right, but then I'm telling you where to sew it a little bit wrong. So I'm going to just put my camera down on my ironing board again and correct it so I show you exactly where to sew, and then I'll come over and show you exactly where I'm going to chain piece after I do that, after I'm chain piecing it. And I just wanted to explain that we are going to end up, before we go over to our design board, we are going to end up with two pieces. We are not sewing that middle kaleidoscope seam. We are ending up with two pieces that, again, you're going to be pinning together till we get to step 3. This is step 2.95. I made a mistake, or a little bit, I think. I caught myself, and I'm just hoping I'm catching you guys. So I'm going to reiterate exactly, and I'm going to show you exactly how to sew once you get into the groove of it, as I was. But if you're not real careful, you really have to be careful of the center of our kaleidoscope blocks, and you are going to end up with this. Okay, you're going to end up with two pieces that we're not sewing the seam together yet, okay? Because on our design board, when we get there, we're going to be using some half pieces to see how the blocks go together. So this is how we're going to end up after we've done all of our sewing. I'm going to put these together with my pin, but I just want to back up a little bit and show you exactly how I'm going to iron these and then take them over for my last seam on my sewing machine. I'm ever so sorry. I've caught this, hopefully, before any of you. I think only a few of you are embarking on this because it's a little bit of a not difficult, but it's a little bit of a challenging project. But I'm breaking it down, but I think I didn't explain it perfectly. So forgive me. I'm just going to put my camera down, and I'll show you exactly how I'm sewing it and how you have to keep it in your mind. And once you do, then you got it. All right, folks, thanks ever so much, and I apologize if you've started and you sewed that seam wrong, and I will explain it to you. This is the exact way to do it, and once you get it, we'll be off to the races. All right, folks, thank you so very much. Love from the True Loves. Have a lovely evening. Thanks. Now, my last video, I was showing you sort of how to press our blocks together, but I just want to reiterate something. This is how we're going to take our pressed blocks over to our machine, okay? So right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sort of go back to 2.5 and I'm going to cut this apart. Now, it's very important with this method for me to keep the center. I clipped my center off square. You may be wanting to put a little dot there or something with a little marker to make sure that to keep in our kaleidoscope blocks in order, in track. That's how you're going to keep them in order, okay? So again, I have my little iron, and I'm going to configure it. I showed you this. This was how this I did very good. Okay, so this is coming off my first bit of chain piecing. Okay, I'm pressing that open. That's my center there. And then I have my 2 extra, but I'm going to press this one. Here's my center. I'll open that seam up. More thumbs. This is so not a process to be rushed, but it's not hard. Okay, so there's my center, and there's my center. Okay, perfect. Remember, as I was saying, we have my block sort of this way, so my kaleidoscope is going beautiful. Okay, now again we have our 2 bits, our 2 extra triangles, and again I have my squared off center. I'm going to place that over there, and my other one there, and there's my beautiful kaleidoscope block. Okay, we just need to sew 2 more seams. This is where my last video, I beg your pardon, I did it right, but then just the last minute I told you to sew the wrong place. So you're going to take this one here, and we're going to put it there. Just place it. We're going to take this piece here, we're going to bring it over to there. Okay, now I had said put them together with a pin and then sew. Right, well, I got that wrong. What we're going to be doing is we're sewing this seam here, and we're sewing this seam here. So it's almost a vertical seam and then a horizontal seam. But in order to chain piece it, which you can very easily, again, when you keep everything in order, pinned, what you're wanting to do now, which is I've done here, is you're just going to want to take your blocks and you're going to want to put them in that configuration there, and then put a pin there, right in the middle. So when we go to sew them, chain piece them, you can see that I've done that with all of these. They're exactly pinned the same exact way. Okay? We are going to go to the machine, and we're going to sew down to here. You're going to take them apart, and then we're going to sew that one and that one. That's our square seam. I made the mistake of saying putting them together, and then you're going to sew that and that one right there, and you're going to get messed up. We are sewing from down to the center out, and then from the center out here. Okay, so again, we're going to configure them vertical and horizontal, but we're going to be pinning them, so when we go to chain piece them, right down there. And again, we are going to end up, our block, we are going to end up with 2 halves of a kaleidoscope block. That's what we want to end up with, which we're going to sew, or which we're going to just pin together and put them to the side before we go to our design wall. So right now I'm just going to take these over to my my sewing machine. Oops, my sewing machine, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to just chain piece this lot after I've done the initial and the pressing. So I have these few blocks that I've done, and I've pinned them exactly the same way. Okay, so I'll put my presser foot down. I'm going to take my pin out. Now this is the 2 halves of my block. I'm pinning that down, sewing that down to the center, and then from the center outwards. Okay, chain piecing those 2 together. Doing the exact same thing, coming back, putting them together, and then pinning them together. Okay, I'll do the next one. I've pinned it exactly like I'm going to be sewing it. I'll take my pin out. I'm going to be sewing what was the sort of the vertical seam to the center, and then the center seam out to the outside. I've come to the conclusion, whoops, this is just it's confusing, but only if you don't do every single step exactly right. Then it's very easy, actually. So here's how I've pinned it. This is my next block. I'm going to be sewing this seam and this seam. And I believe on my last video, I sort of turned it and I sewed that seam. Oh, and it messed up. I made a big mistake. I had to unpick a few, and I thought, what in the world have I done? And unless it's a very specific, very, very, very specific kaleidoscope, you're going to get messed up. I'm going to put these 2 together. If it's a very subtle print, I got really sort of messed up. So then my last one that I'm going to demonstrate on, I'm going to do this one. That's from the outside. Oops. Oh, did I lose my... Oh, I think, oh, there we go. I'm going from the outside down to the center, and my center is my square, and I see my square here, and I chain piece that. And then I put these two together. Now, I've chain piece successfully, five blocks there. They're all pinned together, 4. So now, I'll just unpin this here. And then the nice thing about this method is I found that the chain that's in the middle holds them together there and makes that beautiful kaleidoscope. That chain in the middle. But don't be doing this and sewing that center together. What I did do is I clipped that chain apart. I went over to my ironing board. I pressed that open. I pressed that open. And there we have our block, which I'm putting together when it's all pressed like that. Okay? So again, here's my block that I've just sewn. Here's this one side. Here's my other side with the chain on it still. And then look what we have there. It's together. I clip it. I'm going to iron that, and there I have my 2 halves. So I did. That was a correction I made. I hope I've explained that to you, and I'm very, very sorry if you started doing that seam this way. You're having to sew like that. So I hope I've explained that enough for you. All right, folks, thanks so very much. Bye-bye.